My wife texted, "Stuck at work, happy 36th, while I sat alone at our anniversary dinner. I waited for 2 hours, nursing the same glass of wine, watching couples celebrate around me. But when the waiter finally brought the check, she leaned in close and whispered 7 words that shattered my entire world. Your wife is in private dining room 5 with her boyfriend." I stood up slowly, my legs shaking, and walked toward that door. What I saw when I opened it wasn't just betrayal. It was something so twisted, so calculated, that it would take me months to understand the full scope of what had been done to me. And the man sitting across from my wife, feeding her dessert with a silver spoon? That revelation was the part that nearly destroyed me completely. My name is Nathan Pierce. I'm 49 years old, and until that night, I thought I had a pretty good handle on my life. I owned a successful accounting firm in Denver, made decent money, lived in a nice house in Cherry Creek, and had been married to Rebecca for 18 years. Sure, things weren't perfect. What marriage is after nearly 2 decades? But I never suspected, not once, that the woman I'd built my entire adult life around was capable of what she'd been doing. Before I tell you what happened in that private dining room, you need to understand something about Rebecca and me. We'd met at a corporate tax seminar when I was 31 and she was 28. I know that sounds incredibly boring, and it was. But Rebecca had this way of making even the most mundane topics interesting. She was working as a marketing consultant then, smart and ambitious. With auburn hair she wore pulled back in a professional bun that made her look older than she was. Our courtship was practical, efficient, like everything else in my life. We dated for 2 years, got engaged because it made sense, and married in a small ceremony that satisfied both our families without breaking the bank. No fireworks, no grand gestures, just 2 professionals building a life together with the same care I'd use to build a financial portfolio for a client. The first 10 years were good. Rebecca's consulting business grew steadily. My firm expanded from just me and a secretary to a team of 6 accountants handling clients across 3 states. We bought the house in Cherry Creek, renovated it ourselves over the course of 3 years, and hosted dinner parties where we'd serve wine that cost more than my first car and pretend we understood the difference. But somewhere around year 12, things started shifting. Nothing dramatic, just small changes that I noticed but didn't really process. Rebecca started working later, taking calls in other rooms, becoming more interested in her appearance. She joined a gym, hired a personal trainer, bought clothes that seemed designed for someone younger, someone trying to prove something. I should have paid more attention. But I was busy with tax season, with difficult clients, with expansion plans for the firm, and, honestly, part of me was relieved that Rebecca seemed happier, more energized. I told myself it was good that she was taking care of herself, pursuing her interests, not depending on me for all her emotional fulfillment. If you're enjoying this story and want to hear more true accounts of betrayal, justice, and unexpected revelations, please hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Drop a comment below sharing your thoughts on what you'd do in this situation. And if this story resonates with you, give it a like so more people can find it. Now let me tell you what led to that devastating anniversary night. The day of our 18th anniversary started like any other Wednesday. I woke up at 6, made coffee, and found Rebecca already dressed for work in a navy blue suit I'd never seen before. She was putting on earrings when I walked into our bedroom. "Happy anniversary," I said, kissing her cheek. She smiled, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. "Happy anniversary, Nathan. Did you make the reservation at Marcello's?" Marcello's was the Italian restaurant where we'd had our first real date 18 years ago. Going back there for anniversaries had become our tradition, something predictable and comforting. 7 o'clock, I confirmed. I requested our usual table by the window. Rebecca nodded, checking her phone. "I might be a few minutes late. We have a client presentation that could run long, but I'll be there, I promise." I spent the day at the office handling a complex audit for a pharmaceutical company. Around 3, I realized I'd forgotten to get Rebecca an anniversary gift. I called my assistant, Sarah, and asked her to pick up a bracelet from the jewelry store we always used. "Something tasteful," I told her. "Nothing too flashy." At 6:30, I left the office and drove to Marcello's. The restaurant looked exactly as it had 18 years ago. Same burgundy awnings, same soft lighting through the windows. I'd worn my good suit, the charcoal one Rebecca said made me look distinguished, and I'd even stopped to buy flowers from the vendor on the corner. The hostess, A young woman named Maria, who'd worked there for years, greeted me warmly. "Mr. Pierce, good to see you. Your table is ready." She led me to our spot by the window, the same table where I'd nervously asked Rebecca what she thought about getting serious all those years ago. I ordered a bottle of Chianti, the same wine we'd shared on that first date, and checked my watch. 6:45. Rebecca would be here in 15 minutes, except she wasn't. At 7:15, I texted her. "Everything okay? I'm at the table." She responded immediately. "Presentation running late. So sorry. Should be done soon." I ordered an appetizer, some bruschetta I didn't really want, and watched other couples around me. There was a young pair in their 20s, so obviously in love it almost hurt to watch them. An older couple who barely spoke but seemed comfortable in their silence. A family celebrating something, maybe a graduation, with champagne and laughter. At 7:45, I texted again. "How much longer?" "Still in the meeting. Client is being difficult. I'm really sorry, Nathan." The waiter, a kind-faced man named Antonio, who'd served us many times over the years, approached gently. "Would you like to order, Mr. Pierce, or wait a bit longer?" "I'll wait," I said, forcing a smile. "She'll be here." But as 8 o'clock came and went, something in my chest started to tighten. This wasn't like Rebecca. Even when she was busy, even when work was crazy, she'd always made time for our anniversaries. It was one of the few traditions we actually maintained. At 8:30, my phone buzzed with a text. "Nathan, I'm so sorry. This meeting is going to go past 9. Can we reschedule for tomorrow? I feel terrible about this." I stared at that message for a long time. 18 years. Our 18th anniversary. And she was asking to reschedule like I was a dentist appointment that conflicted with something more important. I typed back. "It's okay. I understand. Work is work." But I didn't leave. Something made me stay in that chair, nursing my wine, feeling the weight of 18 years pressing down on my shoulders. The restaurant was starting to empty out. 9 o'clock came, then 9:15. That's when the new waitress approached. She was young, maybe early 20s, with nervous hands and an expression that suggested she was debating whether to say something. She set down the check, then leaned in close enough that I could smell her perfume, something floral and cheap. "Mr. Pierce," she whispered, glancing toward the back of the restaurant. "I probably shouldn't say anything, but I've been watching you sit here alone all night, and I think you should know. Your wife is in private dining room number 5, with her boyfriend. They've been there since 7. The world stopped moving. Everything went silent except for the sound of my own heartbeat pounding in my ears. "What did you say?" She looked genuinely pained. "I'm sorry. I saw your name on the reservation, and I recognized you from previous visits. They requested the private room specifically. I served them myself around 7:15. They ordered champagne, the expensive stuff, and they were very affectionate." I stood up slowly, my legs feeling like they belonged to someone else. "Room 5? She nodded, pointing toward a hallway I'd never noticed before. "Down that corridor, last door on the left. I'm really sorry, sir. I just thought you deserved to know." I walked toward that hallway like a man heading to his own execution. Each step felt heavy, final. Part of me wanted to turn around, to walk out of the restaurant, to preserve whatever illusion of a marriage I had left. But I couldn't. I had to know. The door to private dining room 5 was slightly ajar. I could hear voices inside, low and intimate. Rebecca's laugh, the one she used to use with me back when things were new and exciting. And then a man's voice, deep and familiar in a way that made my skin crawl. I pushed the door open. Rebecca was sitting across from a man at a small table, candles flickering between them, champagne glasses half empty. She was wearing the dress I'd bought her last Christmas, the emerald green one that brought out her eyes. Her hand was resting on the table, fingers intertwined with his. But it was the man that made my blood run cold. Brandon Hoffman, my business partner. The man I'd brought into my firm 6 years ago. The man I'd mentored, trusted, made a full partner last year. The man who'd been at our house for dinner dozens of times, who'd sat in my living room discussing quarterly reports and growth strategies while my wife served coffee and smiled like the perfect hostess. They both looked up when I walked in. For a moment, nobody moved. Rebecca's face went white, her mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. Brandon had the decency to look ashamed, but only for a second. Then something shifted in his expression, something calculating and cold. "Nathan," Rebecca said finally, her voice barely a whisper, "this isn't what it looks like." I laughed, actually laughed. The sound echoed off the walls of that small private room, bitter and broken. "Really? Because it looks like my wife is having a romantic anniversary dinner with my business partner while I sat alone in the main dining room for 3 hours." Brandon stood up, adjusting his tie. He was younger than me by 8 years, tall and athletic in a way I'd never been, with the kind of easy confidence that made clients trust him immediately. That confidence was on full display now as he looked at me with something that might have been pity. "Nathan, I think we should all talk about this rationally," he said, his voice smooth and professional, the same tone he used in client meetings. "This situation is complicated." "Complicated," I repeated. "My wife is cheating on me with my business partner on our anniversary, and you think this is complicated?" Rebecca reached for her purse, pulling out tissues like they could somehow fix this. "Nathan, please, let me explain. It's not as simple as you think." "Then make it simple for me, Rebecca. How long has this been going on?" She looked at Brandon, some silent communication passing between them. That look, that unconscious synchronization, told me everything I needed to know about how deep this betrayal went. 2 years, she said finally. "It's been 2 years. 2 years. I did the math quickly, my accountant's brain working even through the shock. 2 years meant this started right after I'd made Brandon a full partner, right after I'd helped him buy his first house, right after I'd given him a bonus that was probably funding these private dining room dinners. 2 years, I said slowly. 2 years of lying to my face. 2 years of pretending you were working late when you were with him. 2 years of sleeping in my bed and having dinner at my table while carrying on an affair with my business partner." Brandon cleared his throat. "Nathan, I know this is difficult to process, but you need to understand something. Rebecca and I didn't plan this. We didn't want to hurt you. But sometimes feelings develop that are beyond our control." I turned to him, really looked at him for the first time. "Beyond your control? You're a 41-year-old man, Brandon. You made a choice. Every dinner you had with my wife, every lie you told me about client meetings, every time you looked me in the eye and pretended to be my friend while sleeping with my wife, those were choices." Rebecca was crying now, mascara running down her cheeks. "Nathan, I never meant for this to happen. You have to believe me. But you and I, we've been living like roommates for years. We barely talk anymore. You're always working, always focused on the firm. I was lonely. So you decided to sleep with my business partner." "It wasn't about revenge or anything vindictive," she said quickly. "Brandon listened to me. He made me feel seen, appreciated. He made me feel alive again in a way I haven't felt in years." I looked around that private dining room, taking in the details. The champagne bottle, Dom Perignon, $300 at least. The menu, handwritten, featuring dishes I couldn't pronounce. The roses on the table, the kind Rebecca always said she preferred to the carnations I usually bought. "This was supposed to be our anniversary," I said quietly. 18 years, Rebecca. 18 years of building a life together. And you chose to spend it with him. Brandon stepped forward, and for a moment I thought he was going to try to put his hand on my shoulder in some misguided attempt at comfort. "Nathan, the reason we're here tonight, the reason we did this on your anniversary, is because we need to talk to you about something important. Rebecca and I have been discussing our future, and we think it's time to be honest about everything." "Honest?" I repeated. "You want to be honest now after 2 years of lies?" Rebecca wiped her eyes, smudging her mascara even more. "We want to be together, Nathan. Really together, not sneaking around anymore. Brandon and I, we're in love. We want to build a life together." The words hit me like physical blows. In love. Build a life together. These were the words Rebecca had said to me 18 years ago when I'd proposed. Now she was using them to explain why she was leaving me for my business partner. "I want a divorce," she continued, her voice steadier now. "I've already spoken to a lawyer. We can make this as painless as possible. I'm not going to fight you on assets or anything like that. I just want us both to be able to move forward and be happy." I looked at Brandon, who was nodding along like this was a reasonable business proposal we were discussing. "And what? About the firm? What about our partnership? Brandon had the audacity to smile. That's actually the other thing we need to discuss. I think it might be best if I buy you out. The firm has grown significantly since I came on board, and with my client relationships and Rebecca's marketing expertise, we could really take things to the next level. The full picture snapped into focus with stunning clarity. This wasn't just an affair. This was a calculated takeover. Brandon wasn't just stealing my wife. He was stealing my business, my reputation, everything I'd built over 20 years of hard work. You planned this, I said slowly. Both of you. This whole thing was planned. Rebecca's eyes went wide. Nathan, no, it's not like that. Isn't it? You start an affair with my business partner. You convince me to make him a full partner, giving him equal say in the company. Then you wait for the right moment to ask for a divorce and push me out of my own firm. This is a hostile takeover dressed up as a love story. Brandon's expression hardened. You're being paranoid, Nathan. This isn't about the business. It's about the fact that your marriage has been dead for years and you were too blind to see it. My marriage was fine until you decided to interfere with it. Your marriage was a convenience, Brandon shot back. Rebecca told me everything. How you treat her like an accessory, something to display at client dinners but ignore the rest of the time. How you haven't taken a real vacation in 5 years because you're too obsessed with growing the firm. How you forgot her birthday last year because you were closing a deal. I looked at Rebecca. You told him about my forgetting your birthday? She nodded, not meeting my eyes. I tell him everything, Nathan. That's what people do when they're in love. They share their lives. The hurt was starting to transform into something else now. Anger, yes, but also clarity. I could see the situation for what it really was. Two people who'd betrayed me, used me, and were now trying to make me feel guilty about their choices. I need some time to think about all this, I said finally. But I want you to know something, both of you. You might think you've won, that you've outsmarted me, taken everything I've built, but you forgot something important. What's that? Brandon asked, his voice dripping with condescension. I'm a forensic accountant. I built my reputation on finding hidden money, tracking paper trails, uncovering fraud. And I'm very, very good at my job. I turned and walked out of that private dining room, leaving them sitting there with their champagne and their plans. As I passed through the main dining room, the young waitress who'd told me the truth caught my eye. I stopped at her station and handed her $500 bills from my wallet. Thank you for your honesty, I said. It's rarer than you'd think. The next morning, I went to the office at 5 a.m., 2 hours before anyone else would arrive. I had keys to everything, access to all the files, all the computers, all the records, and I started digging. Brandon had been sloppy. Maybe he thought I trusted him too much to check, or maybe he'd gotten arrogant after 2 years of getting away with his affair. Either way, the evidence was everywhere once I knew to look for it. Expense reports for client dinners that never happened. Hotel rooms charged to the company card in cities where we had no clients. Consulting fees paid to Rebecca's marketing company for work she'd never actually done. And most damning of all, emails between Brandon and Rebecca discussing their plans to push me out of the firm, complete with strategies for making me look incompetent to our clients. They'd been planning this for at least 8 months, every detail carefully orchestrated. The affair was just one piece of a larger scheme to take everything I'd built and make it their own. By 8 a.m., I had compiled a file that would destroy both of them. Financial fraud, embezzlement, breach of fiduciary duty. Brandon hadn't just betrayed me personally. He'd stolen from our company, from our clients, from every person who'd trusted us with their financial security. I called my lawyer, Richard Donovan, an old friend from college who specialized in business litigation. He came to the office within an hour, reviewed my evidence, and let out a low whistle. Nathan, this is enough to send Brandon to prison, Richard said, flipping through the documents. And Rebecca's complicity is well documented here. She knew about the embezzlement, helped facilitate it through fraudulent consulting contracts. I want to file criminal charges, I said. Both of them. Richard nodded slowly. I'll contact the district attorney's office today. But Nathan, you should know this is going to get ugly. These things always do. Brandon will hire lawyers, try to discredit you, make you look vindictive. Let him try. I have the truth, and I have the evidence. That's more than enough. The arrests happened 3 weeks later. The police showed up at Brandon's house at 6 in the morning and led him away in handcuffs while his neighbors watched. Rebecca was arrested at her sister's house, where she'd been staying since our confrontation at Marcello's. The charges were extensive: wire fraud, embezzlement, conspiracy to commit fraud. The district attorney's office, impressed by the thoroughness of my evidence, threw everything they could at both of them. Rebecca's lawyer called me 2 days after her arrest. She wanted to talk, to explain, to somehow make me understand that this wasn't what she'd intended when she started the affair. I agreed to meet her at a coffee shop downtown, curious to hear what possible explanation she could offer. She looked terrible. No makeup, hair pulled back in a messy ponytail, wearing sweatpants instead of her usual designer clothes. She'd aged 10 years in 3 weeks. "Nathan," she said when I sat down across from her. "Thank you for meeting me. I'm only here to see if you've come to your senses." She nodded, wringing her hands. "I made a mistake, a terrible mistake. Brandon convinced me that we could have it all: the business, each other, a new life. He made it sound so easy, so reasonable. I was stupid to believe him." "You were more than stupid, Rebecca. You were criminal." "I know," she whispered. "My lawyer says I could face up to 5 years in prison. Brandon could get 10. Our lives are over. You should have thought about that before you decided to steal from me." She looked up, tears streaming down her face. "Is there any way we could work this out? Any way you could drop the charges? I'll give you everything, Nathan. The divorce will be on your terms completely. I'll walk away with nothing. Just please don't let them send me to prison." I sat there looking at this woman I'd spent 18 years with, the woman who'd promised to stand by me through everything, and I felt nothing but cold satisfaction. "No," I said simply. "You made your choices, Rebecca. Now you live with the consequences." The trial lasted 3 months. Brandon tried to claim I'd framed him, that I was a jealous husband inventing evidence. But forensic accounting doesn't lie. The jury saw the paper trail, the emails, the fraudulent charges. They deliberated for less than 4 hours. Brandon got 8 years in federal prison. Rebecca got 3 years plus 5 years probation. Their lawyers filed appeals, but Richard told me they had almost no chance of success. The evidence was too strong, the crimes too clear. I kept the firm, obviously. Rebuilt the client relationships Brandon had damaged, hired new accountants who actually valued integrity. Business actually improved once word got out about how I'd handled the situation. Apparently, companies appreciated working with someone who took fraud seriously. On what would have been our 19th anniversary, I went back to Marcello's. I requested a table in the main dining room, not a private one. I ordered the Chianti, the bruschetta, everything I'd ordered that night a year ago when I'd sat alone waiting for a wife who would never come. Maria, the hostess, recognized me. "Mr. Pierce, it's good to see you again. Dining alone tonight?" "Actually," I said, and smiled for what felt like the first time in months. "I'm meeting someone. Her name is Elena. We met at a Chamber of Commerce meeting last month." Maria smiled warmly. "I'll bring her right over when she arrives." Elena showed up exactly on time, which I appreciated. She was a real estate attorney, smart and direct, with no patience for games or manipulation. We'd been seeing each other casually for a few weeks, taking things slow, building something based on honesty rather than illusion. "Happy anniversary," she said when she sat down, then caught herself. "Wait, that's not appropriate. Sorry." "It's okay," I said, pouring her some wine. "I'm reclaiming this place, this night, turning it into something new." We talked about work, about her current cases, about a property dispute that reminded me of some tax situations I'd handled. Normal conversation between two professionals who enjoyed each other's company. No drama, no grand declarations, just two people sharing a meal and building something real, one honest conversation at a time. As we left the restaurant that night, I glanced back at the hallway leading to private dining room 5. That door was closed now, locked, the room where my old life ended and my new one began. I never told Elena the full story of what happened there. Maybe someday I would, when enough time had passed, when the wounds had fully healed. But for now, it was enough to walk out of Marcello's with someone who valued honesty, who understood that trust was the foundation of everything, and who would never dream of destroying someone's life for personal gain. If this story moved you or made you think about trust and betrayal differently, please share it in the comments below. Let me know what you would have done in my situation. And don't forget to subscribe for more true stories about justice, redemption, and the strength it takes to rebuild your life after betrayal. Sometimes the best revenge isn't violence or drama. It's simply refusing to let the people who hurt you destroy who you are. Rebecca and Brandon tried to take everything from me: my wife, my business, my reputation. But they forgot the most important thing. You can't build a future on a foundation of lies. Eventually, the truth comes out. And when it does, the only thing left standing is your character. Mine was strong enough to survive their betrayal. And in the end, that was all that mattered.